all of the cognitive fatigue, I see it closely related to emotional labor.
Okay. Explain that
So,
phrase.
sure, this is basically the invisible and unpaid, mostly unpaid labor that we do to keep the ship of our lives, our families, our homes, our businesses running. So other people underestimate what it takes to keep a house running, to have food in the house, to make sure what the toilet paper does not replace or purchase itself, right? Keeping things the way they need to be for us, for it to keep going. If you have kids, parent teacher stuff, what do you got to do the end of the year, get a present for all of those things take bandwidth. And I think a lot of that actually contributes to cognitive fatigue, because it's like we can never, even when we're quote unquote resting, we're thinking about all the crap that we're forgetting, because we are, right? The list that never ends, that you're checking crap off of, but it never really actually gets to the end of that list. So these are really important concepts for us as human beings, especially as women, that for us to understand. And really at the base of all of what we're talking about right now are disordered boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so one of my thoughts is that I can only say as a 53-year-old woman that I've noticed as my hormones have gone down, it becomes even more apparent, the cognitive fatigue. And where I used to be able to put in a 12-hour day, it's like I can do about half of that. And I've thought that I've looked at that as a hormonal depletion. I should fix it. But what I hear you saying is that you should embrace it and learn a different pattern of work. And if that's what you're saying, how do we do that? Like, I don't even know how to do that.
Well, part of it is getting really clear about who's doing what in the house and how equitable or inequitable that is. So how I got turned on to emotional labor, people talk about, in our worlds, people talk about it quite a bit, but I didn't really understand the concept until I read a Marie Claire article about a woman who is an engineer and her husband is also an engineer. And she tells the story of her husband is home, she's at work, her husband was working from home that day. And he gets in touch with her and says, "Can you let the dog walker know I don't need her to come today? That we don't need her." And she just hit a tipping point where she was like, why don't you even have the phone number for the dog walker? Like,
right.
Why am I literally I'm at work, you're at home, and it's you who doesn't need her because you're there. Anyway,
right.
So she hit a tipping point and she went home. And when he was at work the next day, she took a whiteboard and she literally wrote out every single solitary freaking thing that she does in the house for all of them. Like, so she wasn't listing the work stuff. It was this is what I do to keep the boat of our lives afloat. And she was like, I'm going to have a conversation with my partner. And because the partner was also very sort of clinically minded, they were both engineers and very data driven. First he was a little bit like, wait, what are you saying? Are you criticizing, whatever? And then she was like, you get to choose. Half of these things are now yours.
Yeah.
And it was undeniable, him sort of looking at the list, and that shifted, because what ends up happening if we don't create a more equitable situation for us in our homes? And listen, not all of us have the luxury. Not everyone is partnered. But if you have kids who are more adult age or late teens or even mid-teens, right? Kids can help and should help. You're not a servant for anyone.
Yeah.
And also, it doesn't do kids any good if we don't teach them do things in life, like make a grilled cheese sandwich or do their own laundry, which by 10, I feel like certainly they can be doing their own laundry. Like, it's not that hard. And giving responsibility, it makes you much less resentful. This whole idea of being a superwoman and we should do it all. And we can really, we can sort of bring this back to the 70s, late 60s, early 70s, when women could become something other than a nurse, a secretary, or a teacher, right? Suddenly, you could do something else. Oh, but it wasn't like any of the at home, the domestic work wasn't suddenly shifted to the partners in most cases. There was an expectation that we would go out, work full time, bring in at least half the money, if not more, and continue to do all the child rearing crap and all of the getting the end of the year teacher gift and figuring out what are the 9-year-olds doing for their sleepover and what are the fun games we're playing and the dentist and the doctor and all the things. And so this is a moment, if you're identifying with this, if you're feeling like, wow, I definitely have cognitive fatigue, or I'm doing way more of the emotional labor in my life, this is your opportunity to just pause. Why don't you do what the author of that Marie Claire article did and really write down, because we have a tendency ourselves to minimize what we're doing. At the end of the day, you could be like, what did I even do today? But then if you really thought about what you did, maybe you made food for the rest of the week for the family. Maybe you went food shopping. Maybe you cleaned the house. Maybe you did 3 loads of laundry. None of that is free. Like, that's bandwidth sucking stuff. So this is your opportunity to go, okay, what am I doing? And what do I not want to do? And a really important question is, what am I doing for other people, because I'm codependent, that they should and can actually be doing for themselves? And it would be better for all the people if they were doing it for themselves. Because I find that a lot with my therapy clients, that they're so used to doing it all that they're on autopilot, but they're exhausted, depleted, getting autoimmune disorders, and bitter.